There came a time, however, when it was clear to all that the company's life-or-death crisis was over. The prospect of institutional death had helped IBMers break from the past. What would be the means by which we could embrace the future? The answer to that came in our e-business strategy. I have already described it as an integrating program for the company on a strategic and operational level, and it was all that. But the appeal of e-business to me was actually even greater for what it would do internally for our people. I decided to declare e-business as our moonshot, our galvanizing mission, an equivalent of the System/360 for a new era. We infused it into everything, not just our advertising, product planning, research agendas, and customer meetings, but throughout our communications and operations, from my emails, broadcasts, and town hall visits to the way in which we measured our internal transformation. It provided a powerful context for all of our businesses. It gave us both a marketplace-based mission and a new ground for our own behaviors and operating practices. In other words, culture. Most important, it was outward-facing. We were no longer focused on turning ourselves around. We were focused on setting the industry agenda again. We shifted the internal discussion from a what do we want to be to a what do we want to do? Restless self-renewal. I came to realize soon after arriving at IBM that there were and are tremendous strengths in the company's culture characteristics no one would want to lose. If we could excise the bad stuff and reanimate the good, what resulted would be an unbeatable competitive advantage. As I write this, the battle is not over. IBM has, in effect, undergone vast culture change. The GNU Blue, tied to our e-business strategy and focused on the market's most promising growth opportunities, is beginning to take off. IBMers are energized, motivated, and stimulated as they haven't been in a long time. IBM the leader, though very different from IBM the leader of an earlier era, is becoming embedded in the minds of more than 300,000 of the brightest people on the planet. Where do we go from here? One of two things will happen over the next 5 years. Perhaps we will fall once again into the trap of codification. Win, execute, team will become platitudes, the same fate that befell the basic beliefs. The SLG will become the IBM management committee of your. Maybe, on the other hand, we'll figure out a way to hold on to our newfound edge and agility. Maybe we can practice continual, restless self-renewal as a permanent feature of our corporate culture. This is something that only a handful of institutions ever achieved. Over an extended period of time, IBM has forged ahead through a combination of circumstances, heritage, hard work, and luck to a position where it is now pioneering a new kind of business enterprise, the counterintuitive corporation. I noted some of its characteristics in my final letter to shareholders in our 2001 annual report. Big but fast, entrepreneurial and disciplined, at once scientific and market-driven, able to create intellectual capital on a worldwide scale and to deliver it to a customer of one. This new breed continually learns, changes, and renews itself. It is tough and focused, but open to new ideas. It abhors bureaucracy, dissembling, and politicking. It rewards results. Above all, it covets talent and passion for everything it does. Building on decades of experience, knowledge, maturity, and character, IBM over the past 10 years has begun to develop the ability to handle a very high level of internal complexity and even apparent contradiction. Rather than hiding from conflict or suppressing it, we're learning how to manage it, even benefit from it. This equilibrium can be achieved only when an enterprise has a very sure sense of self. Sustaining that balance will be tough, but I am optimistic. Something has stirred inside this once sleeping giant. Its people have been reawakened to who they are, what they can do. Their pride has been rain-stilled and their hope regenerated. Besides, the marketplace we're now living in, the most dynamic, competitive, global economy, not to mention political, cultural, and Social environment in recorded history will help. As long as IBMers remain focused outward, the world will keep them on their toes. Part 4 Lessons Learned. What did I learn from my have I accumulated during the course of more than IBM experience? What lessons? 3 decades in business? These are questions I get asked a lot these days. And I always preface my answer with the same concerns and hesitancy. I've never been certain that I can abstract from my experiences a handful of lessons that others can apply to their own situations. Beyond that highly pragmatic consideration, I have more than a sneaking suspicion that what I am prepared to offer here will not surprise, astonish, or delight the reader who has come in search of something resembling a secret formula or a directory of timeless revelations. The workaday world of business isn't about fads or miracles. There are fundamentals that characterize successful enterprises and successful executives. They are focused. They are superb at execution. They abound with personal leadership. If not immutable, these three are at least consistent through the ups and downs of economic cycles, through changes in the leadership of any particular institution, and through technical revolutions, the likes of which we just experience with the Internet. They apply to enterprises of all sizes and types, large and small companies, publicly traded and non-profit organizations, universities and, in part, governments. At the end of this part of the book, I will address a final issue that is unique to the largest and most complex institutions: how to strike the appropriate balance between integration and decentralization. 23 Focus. You have to know and love your business. Few people and few institutions would admit to a lack of focus, even in an exercise of honest self-evaluation. However, I have learned that lack of focus is the most common cause of corporate mediocrity. It shows up in many forms, most notably in the items that follow. The grass is greener. This is the most pernicious example. In my 35-year business career, I have seen many companies, when the going gets tough in their base business, decide to try their luck in new industries. It's a long list: Xerox going into financial services, Coca-Cola into movies, Kodak into pharmaceuticals. I remember when I was a student at Harvard Business School 40 years ago, a marketing professor argued that the problem with buggy whip companies was they thought they were in the buggy whip business, not the transportation business. The professor argued that companies often focus on too narrow a segment and fail to see important changes in their marketplaces. I cannot argue with the underlying premise here, but I would argue that it's very, very hard for a buggy whip company to become an airplane manufacturer. Too many executives don't want to fight the tough battles of resurrecting, resuscitating, and strengthening their base business, or they simply give up on their base business too soon. As IBM made its bet on the kind of convergence I described in Chapter 18, it diverted its attention from what it always did well, building large-scale, powerful computers, and bought a telephone switching company, ROLM. When things got tough in the charge card and travel business in the 1980s, the chairman of American Express tried to get into the cable TV, entertainment, and book publishing businesses. Of course, American Express brought no skills to any of those businesses. Nabisco, one of the great food companies in the world, bought a tobacco company in 1985. 14 years later it spun off the tobacco business, and the only true long-term result was a weakening of the food company. That's usually what happens when a company strays from its core competencies. Its competitors rejoice at and prosper from the lack of focus, and the company ultimately sinks into a deeper hole. The fact is, in most cases a company has a set of competitive advantages in its base business. It may be hard, very hard, to redirect or re-energize an existing enterprise. Believe me, it's a lot easier than throwing that enterprise over the fence into a totally new environment and succeeding. Age-old common sense: stick to your knitting. Dance with the partner who brought you. History shows that truly great and successful companies go through constant and sometimes difficult self-renewal of the base business. They don't jump into new pools where they have no sense of the depth or temperature of the water. We need to grow, so let's go acquire somebody. Related very much to the ongoing commitment to building a core Business is the ability to say no to acquisition fever. This is a contagious disease that infects too many executives. When given a choice of working hard to fix a base business or, instead, completing a glamorous acquisition and crowing about its promise on the financial TV stations, too many executives opt for the latter. As I look back on my IBM life, there is no question that a good portion of our success was due to all of the deals we didn't do. A partial list of the companies that were proposed as acquisition candidates includes MCI, Nortel, Compaq, SGI, and Novell, and telecoms galore. Investment bankers with thick, blue books were always ready to describe a yellow brick road leading to the wonderful city of Oz. Not one of these deals would have worked. I could tell a lot of investment banker stories, but perhaps the one that stands out in my mind the most was the proposal from one bank that IBM acquire Compaq Computer. The summary of the transaction that was included in the front of the ever-present blue book showed IBM's stock price going up forever after completing the transaction. Surprised at how this tree would grow to heaven, I rummaged through the appendix and found that IBM's profits for the next 5 years, roughly $50 billion after taxes, would be wiped out by this transaction, and we would show huge losses over that entire period. When I told my CFO to question the banker about how this could be viewed as positive by the investment community, the answer came back, "Oh, investors would all see right through this. It wouldn't matter." If only the elixir peddled by investment bankers worked, then CEOs would never have to worry or even work. Hello, Golf.